Pokemon is a game loved by many. Some of us grew up with it, and others are just experiencing it for the first time. Regardless, Pokemon has basically been around since the dawn of time. With a franchise that's been around for so long and catered to such a broad range of audiences, there's always going to be a bit of a challenge on their end to get the difficulty just right. After listening to my friend Callum struggle so much in the new Mystery Dungeon game while making a video about the hardest Pokemon games, we thought what could be a better way to spice things up than a collab highlighting the easiest Pokemon games to go along with it.
So you're just gonna leave out the fact it was Purity Forest I was struggling on?
Yeah.
Okay, whatever, Woopsire. Woop pretty much covered it. A few days ago I took to Twitter and asked what they thought were the easiest Pokemon games as well. We got a lot of responses and a lot of interesting opinions.
I think my response was the best.
We're going to be going over what we consider to be some of the easiest Pokemon games. Keep in mind that we aren't going to be going through every game in this series because if we did, we'd be here for ages. And obviously, certain games are going to be easy because they weren't made to be difficult. Another big factor of the game's difficulty is also the experience that we, the player, have with the game. Games like Pokemon Art Academy are obviously going to be easy, and arguably, those shouldn't even be counted as games.
Whoa, Callum, you can't just say that. Don't you know how defensive people get over Art Academy? But to be fair, he's right. Obviously, everyone's definition of easy is subjective. I'm not sure who needs to hear this, but no one really cares if you can beat every Pokemon game blindfolded with your hands behind your back. Anyways, I think we've got mostly everything cleared up, but just a quick recap. We're taking a look at some of the spin-offs, aka the ones that we deem worthy, and then the main series games. So without further ado, roll the intro. But first, a word from our sponsor. Raid Shadow Legends is the world's most popular mobile RPG, and the best part is, it's completely free to play. It's got amazing 3D graphics, amazing boss fights, 60 FPS gameplay, PvP, insane dungeons to run through, and hundreds of awesome champions to collect and power up how you see fit. I mean, the game just looks amazing, especially for a mobile game. The detail and performance you get from this is unlike any other that I've ever seen before. The game is growing so fast, and to help out new players catch up, the first 90-day rewards have been extended to 180 days, including energy refills, silver, gems, shards, and a free Barbarian Legendary Champion. My favorite thing about it is the auto grinding feature, which is perfect for me. I can set it up to run through dungeons and progress while I'm doing other things like working and editing, come back and collect my rewards to power up my team even more. There's a little bit of everything for everyone, whether you just want to collect characters, you want a good RPG game with a solid story, or you just want a game to grind in the background. It's so rewarding to be productive in real life and in-game too. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description to get your free silver, gems, and the rare hero Adjudicator available for the next 30 days here.
In my time. Yeah. Rolling, I can never get enough. I've been up too long and I way too drunk, but we straight up in it and we.
Pokemon Go. You literally just go outside, bro.
I think that's the hard part.
Okay. As a longtime player of Pokemon Go, the game is literally not challenging at all. I've been playing it for years now, and I can't really think of anything that's super challenging. The more time you put into it, the further you progress. It's as simple as that, really.
Yeah, and I mean, the only real objective is to get out there and catch Pokemon. Of course, there's more to the game with things like gym battles, team pride, and even events that range from small to a large scale, along with things like missions to catch every legendary Pokemon, the introduction of Shadow Pokemon, and whatever else is coming down the pipeline. I think Pokemon Go is a perfect example of a game doing drip feeding right. Personally though, it's just not for me. I'm not good at the whole going outside thing. It's just too hard. Pokemon Snap is one that I've always found pretty easy. I mean, even before you learn how to get the highest score, which comes from playing the game and putting 2 and 2 together, if you boil the game down to the basics, it's just taking pictures of Pokemon. I mean, the hardest part about this game is hearing Oak tell you he's disappointed. As far as gameplay goes, it totally falls into the easy category. But like all games, the more strategic you are, the better you'll do. The higher scores you'll earn and the better overall experience you'll have. It's not just about snapping a pic. It's also about the size of the Pokemon, whatever pose it's making, the technique, and not all Pokemon are inherently models.
I didn't want to leave out one of the most underrated side games of all time, Pokemon Conquest. Honestly, difficulty-wise, it's hard to rate it. I personally have only played the main storyline, which is so minuscule in terms of what the game actually has to offer, but I didn't find the main story to be insanely hard. I lost a few times, but I think that was more to do with the gameplay style. People that have played the entirety of Conquest all seem to come to the same conclusion that it's hard to start and becomes easier the stronger your Pokemon become. So like I said, it's hard to place this one anywhere, unless we make a medium difficulty Pokemon list. And the last of the side games to talk about is Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX. This game just came out last month and is a HD remake of the original Red and Blue Rescue Team. Mystery Dungeon games are actually known for how unforgiving they can be. There's a lot of RNG. Every place you go is random. Of course, there's set items and set Pokemon that you can find in specific areas, but after that it's RNG. Do you arrive on the same floor as the stairs, or is it the last room you check? Will there be a monster house? Will you get unlucky and find no useful orbs, berries, seeds? A lot of it is luck based, but despite this, I can confidently say that the main story of the new Mystery Dungeon game is fairly easy. The difficulty changes based on who you play as, and who your partner is, like, of course you'll struggle against Moltres and Articuno if you're playing as a grass type. But they also included this new feature to the games called Rare Qualities. I think without these, the games would be a lot harder, but honestly, they're a welcome addition because the game still feels about the same it always has. They did a good job balancing it out. Anyways, if you prepare enough, aka hoard Reviver Seeds, you'll have little to no challenge with the main story. The post game, however, is its own beast we're going to discuss in my video.
And this is my video, where stuff is easy, but that about wraps it up for the side games, so let's hop into some main series takes. Now, let's quickly preface this by saying in no way, shape, or form are we calling the games we're about to roll out bad. As longtime players of the game, we're obviously going to think they're easy, especially because the amount of hand-holding has increased by quite a bit. First up for the main series games, we think Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee are both pretty easy. For starters, Pikachu and Eevee. No, but really, the Let's Go games were obviously geared towards children, and I think that's pretty undisputable. They were very colorful, and I mean, that art style. It was also a nice throwback for us old men though, so I'm not complaining. This is one in particular that had quite a bit of hand-holding for the new players in it. I mean, the hardest part about these games was pretty much just catching the Pokemon. Not to mention, a lot of little changes seem to make big impacts and almost take away the challenge of the original games. Things like being able to see Pokemon in the overworld and know just what to avoid. There's no more exhilarating moments like being steps away from the end of Viridian Forest with all your mons poisoned and dying, and that random encounter that just pops up to stop you dead in your tracks. They also made these starting Pikachu and Eevee basically unkillable. They're so strong, it's ridiculous, both getting perfect stats and their own set of unique moves. Each unique move is pretty powerful and has a crazy effect, or is just a strong move in whatever type it may be. I think playing through Let's Go Pikachu, my Pikachu maybe died once, and that's a very strong maybe, and I could very well be remembering that wrong. On top of all of that, you have instant access to your entire arsenal of Pokemon, with the box having an item now that allows you to instantly access it. There's no more running through a route or dungeon and having your team ran ragged. You can now just pop the box open and replace your team. No more strategizing before things like the Elite Four and stocking up on items, etc. It just takes away the challenge of it all. Speaking of taking away from the challenge, the EXP and leveling is just off the charts. Not to say getting loads of XP easily is a bad thing, but they didn't match the level curves to go along with this, so you end up being insanely overleveled for no reason. And it makes the game a cakewalk. They traded grinding for convenience. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass the baton off to Callum here, because I think he's got some things to say about that in Pokemon Sword and Shield.
One thing we heard a lot in the replies on Twitter is how easy Pokemon Sword and Shield were because of the EXP candy and the baked in EXP share. Firstly, I believe a lot of the ease of Sword and Shield comes from the fact that most of us have been playing Pokemon for a long time now. We know our type matchups and know what most abilities do. I know a few friends who got into Pokemon Sword and Shield from Pokemon Go, and they mentioned struggling on a couple gym battles. Hell, even I got blown back against Alistair when I played through Pokemon Shield for the first time. And I'm a Poketuber, this is my job. I'm not Poke-Aim levels good, but I'm not exactly a casual player. Secondly, the EXP candy can make the game a lot easier if you choose to abuse it. The way I see it is, EXP candy is just a faster, more convenient way to grind. You've always been able to grind your Pokemon to level 100 in the first route. It would just take an unreal amount of time and no one would realistically do that. Thirdly, the EXP share not being optional is a huge bummer, but I believe they balanced it very well. My first playthrough of Sword, I did maybe 2 max raid battles and I was roughly 8 to 9 levels lower than the champion. It felt like the older Pokemon games again. The only reason I beat Leon first try is because of how many healing items I had. So personally, I think Sword and Shield aren't necessarily as easy as everyone says they are. Are they the hardest games ever? No. I would argue they aren't even in the top 5 easiest main series games. I know it's probably a bit strange, I just ranted about how Sword and Shield aren't easy in a video about easy games, but it was such a highly mentioned game in the tweet that I made, I felt it was necessary to mention it at least. For new players, Sword and Shield might actually be kinda challenging, just like how Diamond and Pearl were challenging for us back in the day.
Excellent points, Cal. You can tell he's been bottling that up for a long time now. Following that, we wanted to mention another set of games that came up quite a lot. Pokemon X and Y are some of the most universally agreed upon games for being the easiest so far. This was the first time since Red, Blue, and Pokemon Yellow that we saw a team-wide EXP share. That made sure your team was in large part around the same level, which does not inherently make the game easy, kind of like what Cal was talking about with Sword and Shield. It just removes the grinding aspect of the game for the most part. However, this was a toggleable option, so you could choose to leave it on or off. What really made this game easy though were the 2 free megas you were just handed halfway through the game. You got your choice of Kanto starter and a Lucario, both with their Mega Stones. So essentially after that, the game just becomes a cakewalk, and the hardest thing about it is just traveling to basically pick up your badge. They might as well just set up a drive-thru for you to collect as you pass.
On top of all of that, the team's important trainers use are pathetic. Firstly, they all have 3 Pokemon at most. Yep, even the 8th gym leader, 3 Pokemon. Secondly, Karina doesn't even use her Lucario in the gym battle. Ramos has a Weepin Bell? He's the 4th gym leader just like Erica, and he has a Weepin Bell. Erica's Victory Bell is 2 levels lower than his Weepin Bell. It just doesn't make sense to me. Alright, and then the Elite Four. The Pokemon choices themselves aren't awful, but they only have 4 Pokemon each, which is a continued trend from the 5th generation games. So I suppose you can't really fault X and Y for that too much. But lastly, the champion. Diantha is just a disappointment in every single way. She's boring design and personality wise, and also has a bad team. That's actually all you need to be a decent champion. Be interesting with a good design and also a good team. She's got none of those qualities. It is such a boring way to end X and Y, and a disappointing one too, because like I mentioned, her team's pretty bad. And the EXP share did make the game a bit too easy. I don't think they balanced it well at all. Gold and Silver was the first games that came to mind when thinking of easy Pokemon games. The games are just glorified Red, Blue, and Yellow DLC. Now I know what you're thinking, but Whitney and her Miltank.
That is one thing we will give you about this game. Gold and Silver didn't offer much to deal with a rollouting Miltank at that point in the game. Your best options were Geodude, Sandshrew, Phanpy, which is super rare, and Onix. You can also get Machop by trade. Besides that, those are the only options to take on Whitney and her Miltank, so I will give you that 1 point. Oh, and also Chikorita. Chikorita learns screens and status moves, so you can deal with Miltank with those. Anyway, besides that, it is very easy to be overleveled for the Johto half of the game. The Elite Four's highest level Pokemon is Lance's Dragonite at 50. In the original games, Red and Blue, Lorelei starts with a level 54 Dugong, And I know, that's obviously to make room for a second half of the game.
If you can even call it the second half, more like the last fourth of the game. Our main argument for Gold and Silver being easy is that I've seen many people beat Red with late level 40 Pokemon. Of course, this probably isn't on their first try, and it is most likely experienced players doing this, but still, the only reason your first battle with Red would be so hard is because of the huge level jump from the 8th Kanto gym to his battle. It's like a 20 level jump, which means you either have to grind a lot or just throw yourself at Red over and over until you win. The level curve in this game is awful, and in my opinion that isn't really difficulty, it's just bad game design. Thanks so much for having me, Whoop. If you guys want to check out the video we did on my channel, feel free. It's a video about the hardest Pokemon games.
And that's going to wrap up this one. If your favorite game wasn't here, there's a good chance it was over in Cal's video where we covered the hardest Pokemon games. Make sure to go check that out if you haven't already. I'm sure there will be a card in the top left or top right. I don't know my directions. And maybe some links in the description. Anyways, that's all for this video. Remember to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe.